Hey everyone, welcome to Political Radar Echo, 30 minutes of political talk about current topics with panelists from a variety of viewpoints. I'm your host, Cassandra, and this is episode 12.
This is Political Radar Echo with Cassandra, where we cover many political issues affecting our country with a panel of guests from many viewpoints.
Our panelists today are Andrew Crane and Jones back with us again.
Hello.
So we're going to talk this week in Trump. Just going to kind of go back and rehash. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're here, why you want to talk about Trump.
Is that what I have to talk?
No.
Hi, I'm thanks, Cassandra. I'm Andrew Crane. I'm a teacher with the Green Bay Area Public Schools. I'm a social studies teacher at Southwest High School.
The best subject.
I don't get that very much. So
it's funny, actually, when I met Andrew, he asked what my favorite subject was in high school.
Yeah.
And I said social studies, and he was like shocked by
Are
that.
we all social studies nerds here?
I wonder if there's a theme here, but sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
I also am on a committee at my church, my local parish. I'm in charge of social justice issues. So that between being a social studies teacher and my role with the church, it's important for me to understand current events and hopefully both sides to every issue and communicate that. So I'm very interested in politics and current events.
All right, cool. Jacob?
I work here. Typically, I'm the guy back there. Darian's filling in my role and his role today. Thanks, Darian. I'm a producer here at Newsmakers Studio, and I help make this show possible. And I'm sitting in the desk today.
Yeah, thanks for filling in. We had a panelist who had a medical emergency, so hopefully everything is okay with him. But Jacob's always up on current events, so he nicely filled in, which was great. So, okay, this week in Trump. I have a quote, and we talked a little bit about it to start off here. Mr. Trump, so this is from the New York Times yesterday.
You mean the fake news?
Right, the fake news. Mr. Trump has toggled between teleprompter Trump and unplugged Trump every day since the clashes in Virginia, leaving Washington and the rest of the nation with a chronic case of rhetorical whiplash. All right, so let's go back. We know last week we had the clashes in Virginia, and without really getting into what happened there and our thoughts on that, President Trump came out and said one thing, talked about, how did he put it? The violence and hate on many sides, right? Was it many sides or both sides?
Many
sides, okay. And then he backtracked. He kept going back and forth. So fast forward a little bit. On Monday, August 21st, he went and made a speech about Afghanistan. So let's talk a little bit about that. We got teleprompter Trump on Monday, right? I was actually kind of shocked watching the television and watching him speak. I was like, what is happening? He's using complete sentences and
none of his catchphrases.
Yeah, right. So, okay.
Well, I don't know if we should be that surprised because, to be honest, he's been doing this for the last 2 years since he started on the campaign trail, where we usually get campaign rally Trump. And then once in a while, whether it's at a debate or a key foreign policy speech, or certainly like the Afghanistan speech on Monday night, he does go to teleprompter Trump, and he will be presidential. And then all the pundits and everybody will say, oh my goodness, he's growing into his role as a politician or as the president, and he's turned the corner. But then the very next day, you go back to, and then when we got the rally in Phoenix, where he was back to
literally
unhinged.
It's like it's a pendulum. And on one side is rally Trump, and the other side is presidential Trump. And whenever he goes too far swinging one way, he has to backpedal and go the other way.
Right.
Because one of his bases, either, his rally people, whatever you'd like to call them, get mad at him for being too presidential and, not being the Trump they know. Or he goes too far that way, and the what's the word I'm looking for? I guess the typical conservatives, the establishment, they get upset with him. So he's doing this balancing act between the two.
Well, I've heard many people say he's pretty much a president without a party at this point. But I don't know. I think he kind of has his own party. I'm waiting for them to rename themselves. But so his Afghanistan speech, he said a lot and said nothing kind of at the same time was my understanding of it. He talked about maintaining the presence in Afghanistan, right? That's a change in his position.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, for years. I mean, probably at least 7 years he's tweeted about wasting time and money and lives, criticizing Obama and his policies, and now he's flip-flopped and is got a plan that's frankly not that different from what his last couple of predecessors have put out there.
Right, and that's everything I've read. It said it's basically a plan that really most presidents would be able to get behind with a few tweaks. One thing that concerned me about it was his emphasis on killing terrorists and de-emphasizing nation building. And he was saying, we're not there to nation build. I don't think we ever were. I don't think the United States ever really went into someplace saying we're going to nation build. But is it good to go in and kill terrorists and then just leave?
Well, I mean,
or are we breeding more terrorists?
If you look, that's directly what happened and caused groups like ISIS to be created in the first place. Just going in and killing terrorists demonizes us. And especially, when we kill non-terrorists as well, quite often, something Trump has said he's totally okay with. He doesn't mind collateral damage or killing terrorist families. He's talked about that before, right?
Right.
He just ends up creating more martyrs.
Right. So that part concerned me, but I don't know if overall I thought it was kind of a speech that you could hear from any president.
Could we say that Iraq was nation building? It was taking out, Saddam Hussein's government and trying to put in democratic institutions. And Trump actually said, quote, "We want them to succeed, but we will no longer use American military might to construct democracies in far-off lands or try to rebuild other countries in our own image. Those days are over. We are killing terrorists." But, in Iraq, maybe we were guilty of that. And he, to his credit, surprisingly, in the last couple of years, has criticized his predecessor, Republican president, George W. Bush, for going into Iraq in the first place and then spending so much blood and treasure there. So I think he's trying to put forth that this is not going to be another Iraq adventure, that we have a more specific goal and then we're going to get out.
So my question is this Trump's belief or is this the general's belief? Because when it's teleprompter, it's almost like whenever we have teleprompter Trump, we need a source for it. Because you don't know, are these his words? Are they his general's words? Are they some intern writer's words? Who wrote these words?
Well, he said that his first instinct was to stay out of Afghanistan, to get out, like Obama said he would do, but we still left 8,400 troops there, even though he wanted to get out. But he listened to his generals and has changed his mind, or as Breitbart News said, flip-flopped.
Right. And he did say, to his credit, he also did say that you don't know what you're getting into until you're sitting in the White House. And he said that's the reason that he changed his mind. So, again, I was watching this going, oh, wow, okay, all right. He's saying a lot of stuff. Kind of, it's a little bit vague, but did give some ideas and his reasoning for his flip flop or changing his mind. I don't know if it's a flip flop. That's a Breitbart term, I think, but that's a whole other topic. So, all right. So we had teleprompter Trump. We're going forward with Afghanistan. We know kind of what his plan is.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Why do you think it was so vague? Why do you think there weren't very many details coming from the president about troop levels or other objectives?
I think really, looking back to presidents that I remember, not just Obama and Bush, I don't think that the military necessarily wants the president to give too many details about
The current status.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I question, is it good for us to even know as citizens a lot of the details of what goes on? I think there's a lot kept from us, and maybe.
Or, I mean, there's always the potential that they wanted to keep it simple for Trump. You know, the easier the message, the easier it is to stay on target.
Possible. What do you think, Andrew?
Well, there's always the two sides. One is strategic, that, he criticized Obama just last year about being very specific about troop numbers and objective strategy in Iraq and Mosul, for example, in fighting ISIS, and said, when I'm president, we're not going to do that. So he's following through on that promise. Things went very well, actually, in Mosul, and ISIS, which once controlled 40% of Iraq, now it's, they're in great retreat. But I can understand. The other side is that there are no details, that there are no specifics, and it's just you never know with any president, but especially this one, which one is the more accurate analysis.
Yeah, it's hard to know because after all of this, after we got teleprompter Trump on Monday night, 24 hours later, he was in Phoenix, and he turned back into, I called it real Trump. I've seen
But we don't know if
unplugged
it's
Trump, and you said campaign rally Trump. Completely different person or persona, completely different tone. He went in and had a campaign rally. Now, we're less than a year into his presidency, and he's already having campaign rallies. Why is that? What's happening? That's not something that I remember from any president in my lifetime.
I was at a campaign rally, if you will, for Barack Obama. He came to Southwest High School. I think it was 2009.
Okay.
I think so, shortly into his presidency. But
Okay.
the thing was that it wasn't a campaign rally so much where there were the lock her up and build the wall and all these, where it's all, it was more of a presidential stop to talk about, I believe it was healthcare policy. So there was
Okay.
a stated goal. There wasn't a stated goal of policy so much with Trump's 77-minute speech in Phoenix. It was simply to build himself back up and throw his base a bone and to keep insulated and engaged with those 30-some% of people that still support.
Because let's be clear, without his diehard base, who does he have? The Democrats can't stand him. I'm fairly confident that if they were able to, and many have secretly said, the Republicans don't like him. And moderates really don't like him a lot of the time. A lot of independents. Granted, there are plenty of independents who voted for him. I don't think most independents like him. That's why we see those approval ratings like 30%. What he has left is his base, so he needs to keep them in their fervor. Or what else does he have to keep him not necessarily in power, but showing, hey, there are people who agree with me.
Right. So we see him do this often. He'll go to, and I had posted an article in the community about how he goes to a blue city, and where he knows he's going to get protesters, because that happened. There were protesters there, and that turned rather chaotic. But the blue cities he goes to are surrounded by rural, red counties. So he can pull his base in while he can still get the protesters. Does he like the protesters? Do you think that's part of the game? Does he want them there? Does it help play to his image? I've thought about that.
Well, he likes certainly to have enemies. He's made a lot of them. Whether it's, and maybe so. One of the times in the speech, he savored saying the word Antifa, and certainly throwing that out to his audience as red meat, because that's the alt left apparently.
Right.
So he's making light of his enemies, and of course he spent much of those 77 minutes talking about his enemy, big enemy, the press. So perhaps It's us versus, definitely he looks at an us versus them kind of thing with his base. And the more thems he can point out, and certainly if he could point out that they have clubs like he claimed they did at Charlottesville and that they were the violent ones, that's just going to help his image with his base.
Right. It's almost like it adds to the theatrics of his rallies. But so there were peaceful protests that turned rather chaotic and violent. There were the police deployed like gas, and then the protesters threw them back at the police. So there was chaos outside. But looking at his speech, it was truly terrifying listening to it and some of the things. And if you're a Trump supporter, I really want to hear from you. What is it that helps you
sleep at night?
Yeah, why are you still supporting somebody who he wants to, one of the things that stood out to me is he wants to get rid of the filibuster, and he wants the Senate to get rid of their 60-vote rule when it comes to passing legislation. This is part of who we are as a nation. These are our laws. There's a reason that we have that, so that we don't end up with he's not the king.
If you talk to any senator on either side, they'd agree the filibuster's important. Both sides have used it to do very important things over the years. It's one of the most important things they can do. And it sounds kind of dumb given our current state of incredibly partisan politics and how much of a stalemate things can be. But stalling is important, right?
I think so. And same with the 60-vote rule. When we're talking about changing the laws, we need to be really sure of what we're doing, and it needs to be bipartisan. And I think that 60-vote rule really forces it to be a bipartisan issue.
Right. It forces the governing party, the majority party, actually have good ideas that they can get at least some of the people from the other side,
or at the very least, all of their people, which we saw doesn't always work.
They can't even get that to happen.
As a social studies teacher, what do you think of that? What do you think of him calling for them to change those rules in the Senate? And also, he threatened to shut down the government if they don't pass his wall. If they don't pass the budget for his wall.
It all plays into how divisive he is as a figure and the way he deals with people. You need to have unity. You need to have cooperation. I think most Americans want to have our government actually compromise and cooperate and help solve many of the problems that we have in society. But by changing the rules, or that just doesn't allow for compromise and good policy.
You say, he threatens to shut down the government if he doesn't get his wall. If there's one thing Trump is known for, it's empty threats. I mean, is Hillary Clinton locked up? No. But that gets the conversation in his favor and where he wants it. It's, his being a great deal maker is him threatening, saying, you do this for me or else I'll do this, even if he has no intention of doing it.
Well, can he? Can he even say, we're shutting down the government because I don't get my wall?
Well, he can refuse to sign a budget. I mean, think about all of whether it's people that want to visit the Washington Monument or go camp at a national park or all these other things that we take for granted, I think, as American citizens. And every time the government shuts down, which is usually a Republican threat, and sometimes they've carried that out, people get hurt and people don't get paid if they work for the federal government. So, but you've got those people in America that don't like government, that have been told by media and by the Republican leaders that government is bad. And so there are enough people out there that would say, good, shut it down, without really understanding what that means.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had a neighbor who worked for the federal government, and when was it? It was maybe 4 or 5 years ago when there was a shutdown, and she didn't get paid. Didn't have, and she worked at the airport. She was TSA. I mean, we want TSA there, right?
Well,
I mean,
maybe,
but
that's a conversation for another
different
day.
conversation. But I mean, so I don't think people understand that. Okay, so So we have, he wants to change the rules of the Senate. And Mitch McConnell is actually very opposed to this, which, I mean, good for him for standing up and saying, no, you can't just come in and change the rules. We have these rules for a reason. Although, then he'll just get blasted for being part of the establishment. And
we've seen consistently, especially over the past month, the divide between the two of them growing bigger and bigger. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, and then without even naming names, he criticized Arizona senators, John McCain and Jeff Flake. Now, I have the greatest respect for John McCain. I may not agree with him on politics, but I have a lot of respect for him. He's also going through some major medical issues.
Yes.
But he was blamed for, basically just him, he was blamed for not passing the health care.
But I thought it was the obstructionist Democrats' fault.
I can't keep track. Not to mention there were other Republicans who voted against it, not just John McCain.
There were three, weren't there?
Yep.
There were three.
Collins and Murkowski were the other two.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who have been against it from the beginning. So
they stood up against it from the beginning, but
it's John McCain's fault. Or if you ask him on a Tuesday or a Thursday, it's the obstructionist Democrats' fault.
Right. Okay, so he also blasted constantly the dishonest media, and talked about how he addressed Charlottesville. And he actually omitted when he talked about the on many sides, the violence on many sides, he omitted that in Phoenix. Now I watched a play-by-play on CNN of what he said in Phoenix versus what he actually said in that speech, and he sat there and called the media dishonest while he was standing there lying. They have video reels of this. This is on tape. I can't.
But
that's like,
why are we
seen
surprised?
Me like for the first time going, ah!
The last 2 years of dealing with this man has been situations like this. If you omit some words that are the exact words that people are criticizing you for saying in the first place, you completely change the meaning. If I have and everybody's had conversations with a kid or a student or something where they'll do the same thing, say, but I said this, I told you I was going to the park. But yeah, but you didn't say that you were going to take that 6-pack of Miller Lite with you.
Right.
You admitted that kind of important part of the conversation.
Right. The convenient omission of information. As a teacher, I have witnessed it from students, and I think even our own kids probably do that, and we try to teach them that they should not, right?
But he was waving that paper, and as you said, saying those words and omitting those words, and we know the truth. The majority of us know the truth, especially when we watch CNN and see them side by side. So you're telling me that it's dry when it's raining, which he literally did at the inauguration.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Quinnipiac University had a poll that came out just the other day, a respected poll, and they said that voters trust the media more than Trump, 54% to 36% to tell the truth about important issues. So, he's talking about the media being wrong. He's talking about the media dividing the country, yet we know the truth. We know the truth.
But that's not even an opinion. They have it.
It's alternative facts.
That's kind of been my whole week this week. It's just I want to hear from people who are still supporting Trump. When you see things like that, how it's okay. I'm giving you permission to say, I disagree with that. He's wrong there. I'd really love to see somebody who voted for him or still supports him to come and say, no, he's wrong here.
But here's
can
the
they
thing
do
with
that? Can people who voted for him or still support him? Because the people that I know who still support him have only said to me, I support him 100%, and then reply with stupid memes to me on Facebook.
I can't count the number of people, though, when the whole thing with Billy Bush happened. If you remember that, 6 million years ago.
Yep. Well, when he was impeached, Andrew and I would remember.
Yes.
That.
But you remember that.
Yes.
there are so many people, both that I know in person, or even members of the Republican Party saying that is absolutely wrong. I'm still going to vote for him and support him in every single way, but that's absolutely wrong. And I see that over and over when people do say, Trump did this, and yeah, it's wrong, but I still support him 100% all the time, no matter what, 24/7. How?
Well, there's a couple of things here. Number one is, just like members of Congress thought they could do, they want to have somebody on their team, a Republican, in the White House with their majority in the Congress so that they can get their policy. We're going to say, we're going to have our deal with the devil so that we can get our tax reform and our reduced business regulations, and we can get out of the Paris Climate Accords, and we can kill Obamacare and do all these things, and he's our ticket to getting those things accomplished. The other thing is, that I want to say is that people don't like to admit that they're wrong. I don't know if either. Can you vote?
Yes. Wow. Okay.
You're old
yes.
enough? Okay.
He voted in the last election.
Good.
Yes.
He's
good.
pretty open about who he voted for, too.
I am very open about
Who did you vote for?
Primary, I voted for Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. And then in the election, I voted for Jill Stein, not because I really liked her.
But she wasn't Hillary. She wasn't Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can't imagine 7 months after making a really, really important decision of, who I think should be president of the United States, and then to turn around 7 months later and to be able to admit that I was wrong. No matter, I mean, I can't even fathom that. Now, I know that I've never voted for somebody like Donald Trump before that would challenge my beliefs and my decision to vote like that.
But I mean, to be fair, has there ever been someone like Donald Trump before?
No.
Yeah, it's all uncharted water here, I guess. So, and I don't know if the election had turned out differently. I don't know. Maybe I voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary and then Hillary Clinton for president. Maybe I would be looking back and going, that wasn't the best choice. Or, maybe I wouldn't be happy. But I'm also not afraid to admit she wasn't the greatest candidate she wasn't my favorite person that I've ever voted for. But I'm not afraid to admit that. And there are people out there who will say that. There's plenty of people, especially in our community, who do say, he wasn't the best choice, but I didn't have any other choice. You hear that a lot. He wasn't the best choice, but I didn't have any other choice.
Sure you did. I mean, there were multiple other people on the ballot. You could have even thrown your vote third party. I know it's kind of like wasting a vote, but also totally not. But that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
Or you could have just, I don't know, not voted.
No,
if you don't like.
No.
No. There's a difference between not voting because you don't care about voting and you don't care about your right to vote, and not voting because there's literally no one on the ballot you like.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So quickly before we finish up, another thing that he hinted at was pardoning a controversial Arizona sheriff. Did you hear about that? About the Joe Arpaio? Who he's been sentenced to 6 months in jail for contempt of court because he did not follow the instructions of the court to stop racially profiling people. And he was the sheriff of where Phoenix, the city is.
County.
Yep. Actually lost re-election in 2016. So the voters voted him out. There were so many things he had done. He was actually part of the birther movement, the people who claimed that Obama's birth certificate was fake. And Trump is coming out and saying that he said, he didn't say he was going to pardon him. He said, I think he'll be fine. So
that's the type of statement you use to read the crowd.
Yeah.
To see what are people's reactions to that, thinking I'm going to do it before I say I'm going to do it.
The interesting part of that, though, is, again, he's making his own staff have whiplash because Sarah Huckabee Sanders had said just before that they weren't going to address that at the rally. And then he pulls it out. That poor woman.
Can you imagine working in the White House?
No.
I saw the chief of staff at the Trump Tower when he went off the rails and again kind of doubled down on his original Charlottesville statements, and he just like he just wrinkled his forehead and everything that he was saying, and that's just one speech one time. I can't imagine.
Yeah. So he's alienating his own party. He's alienating his own staff. I mean, we're not even talking about how many people he's fired or have left. I can't imagine.
There are so many jobs he didn't even fill in the first place as well.
Right.
That's something people don't talk about. There are hundreds of jobs that Trump was meant to fill that he never did.
Right.
And now there are more people leaving.
And many of them are actually, I think, state and defense and military type roles that you might want to have filled if you're going to go to war with Afghanistan or North Korea or something like that.
Yeah.
The most damning thing I think about the Joe Arpaio situation is that it comes right after Charlottesville, where the
context,
the timing, the wounds of the racial divide are still festering from just a couple weeks ago. And then he makes a decision to go to Phoenix, state that borders Mexico, to talk about illegal immigration, to talk about pardoning a man who was convicted of contempt of court because he was racially profiling Latinos.
He was told not to.
Mm-hmm.
And B, was part of the birther movement, which was a whole racist conspiracy against the previous president of the United States. So this is a guy that has race and racial issues. Joe Arpaio, just seeping.
Right.
And to be the person that he chose to talk about and to put out there. I don't know if you saw this video a couple days ago that was released, but it showed a white middle-aged woman, I think in Arizona, that stopped a car with Latinos in it. And she was trying to make a citizen's arrest, saying that she believed that these people who were driving in her neighborhood that she didn't recognize, these Latinos, were illegal immigrants, and she was going to call the police on them, and she didn't want them to move. And when you align yourself with a Joe Arpaio and then say, I'm going to pardon him for racially profiling, you are encouraging more of these behaviors. We've seen these behaviors in grocery stores and at airports where Americans seem emboldened to act out in really ugly racist ways. And that's one of the big things that I really, about the whole off the rails speech, I think that was something that I really came away with upset.
Yeah. That was, there were so many, but that one was upsetting. And like you said, the timing of it and everything was really.
I do have a question. We're talking about all of these, and it seems like this is an every week occurrence that crazy things involving the Trump presidency happen. So my question, you're a social studies teacher, you're a social studies nerd apparently too. What are the history textbooks going to say in that one paragraph describing Donald Trump 20 years from now? The ebooks or whatever.
Yeah, good question.
Well, I've asked that. I've even posted on Facebook about that. I've had a lot of good conversations with that. 10 to 20, 50 years from now, what are they going to say, honestly? But the other part of that is, though, there are other things going on in the world besides Donald Trump, and our media has just been consumed by covering everything he says and everything he does. Yet there are still natural disasters. There are still people suffering in the world. There are all these stories that in any other presidency, the media would still be covering in the morning. Yet it's always, so that's kind of sad.
And there are some good things too. I mean, things have been pretty negative lately, and there are tons of bad stories you can look at and just wash yourself in depression. But there are lots of good stories about a bunch of countries really adopting green energy, right? There have been great cases of humanitarian issues being fixed or, helping people. In the past year, we've made gigantic strides in medicine, and no one cares about all that stuff. It's what did Donald Trump tweet today?
Yeah, he does tend to pull the focus away from the bigger stories or more positive or the things that we should be focusing on, which I think is really sad. So we have to wrap up. Andrew, I wish you luck in this school year as a social studies teacher. You never know what's going to get handed to you. So I wish you luck, and I hope you have a really good school year. And I want you to come back and bring a student. We had talked about that. I think that would be really fun. Andrew does the debate club, right?
Yeah, at Southwest last 6 years or so, we had a political debate club with more student interest every year. And
This year's going to be interesting, won't it?
Oh my goodness. Yes. So I'd love to come back, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Like I said, bring back a student. I love having high school students here. I think that's really fun. And Jacob, thanks for filling in. It was fun.
Yep. I mean, I'm here, so it wasn't that much of a walk over.
Yep. It was awesome. So, all right. So that ends Political Radar Echo episode 12. Thank you again for coming on. For show notes, go to politicalradarecho.com/12. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell to get notifications. For more great political content, check out Rhonda on Political Radar Pulse. And if you'd like to support the show, you can like it on Facebook. You can join the Political Radar Echo community group. And you can buy shirts and other merchandise at politicalradar.com/shop. Thanks.
Thanks for watching Political Radar Echo. To ensure that you'll never miss an episode, subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. To check out more episodes of Political Radar Echo, visit politicalradarecho.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.